Hello, and welcome to Voices of the Canyon, where we dive into all things songwriting. I'm your host, Andrea Cunningham, and I'm here to take you on a journey through the minds of the talented songwriters here at Grand Canyon University. Today's episode is all about writer's block, what it is, what it feels like, and how to overcome it. We're also going to be getting the scoop on GCU's very own Canyon worship. So settle in, get comfortable, and help me welcome Jaylin Hope.
Hey!
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing so good. I'm so glad you were able to come on here and talk about all of these things with me today.
Me too. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay, thank you for being on here. Okay, so the past couple episodes we've been talking about Canyon worship has been mentioned, but I want to spend some time just to kind of talk about like what it is and what all goes into the process, just for listeners who may not know.
Yeah.
So can you just explain to me exactly what Canyon worship is?
Of course. So Canyon Worship is a worship album that GCU drops every year. It's been going on since 2016, so we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary, which is exciting.
That's so cool.
Yes, and there's usually about 10 songs on each album, and all of them are student written, and so each song that the student sings, they wrote it. And so you have 10 totally different writers. And yeah, they're just students who are in the worship arts program at GCU, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. When did you know that you wanted to be involved in Canyon worship?
Yeah, it's actually crazy because my family has always kind of been connected to GCU. I'm from Chicago, but my aunt and uncle went here, my brother went here, and so we already knew about the Canyon Worship album, and I started listening to it when I was a freshman in high school, which is so funny, just because, yeah, I think probably my dad sent it to me, and so I thought it was so good. I thought that the writers were so good, and I imagined like, oh, that would be such a cool opportunity, but I didn't know if I wanted to come here. I actually didn't even want to go to college. So that's kind of when I was first interested in it. And then later on in high school, I took a visit to GCU, just kind of like visiting my brother. It wasn't official or anything, but he had a friend who had keys to the studio.
Oh.
And so then he like showed me and my parents around, and I remember seeing the Canyon Worship wall where all of the writers who go through Canyon Worship and then graduate get to sign their signature on this wall. And so yeah, that was so cool to imagine, and so I was interested in it before I even came to GCU.
That's so cool. Did you join Canyon worship your freshman year?
I did, yes.
Oh my gosh, okay, that's so cool. So are you a senior this year?
So it's technically only my second year at GCU.
Oh my gosh, really?
But I graduate in December because I took a fast track.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You really sped it up.
I did. I took a lot of classes every semester.
Perfect.
But I'm thankful.
How did you balance that like with Canyon worship?
Canyon worship is actually not time consuming at all. Yeah, it's actually interesting how the whole process.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can talk about that later. But
yeah, but I was just about to say, like, can you describe like what the process is, like what it looks like? How often do you meet?
Yes. So I should back up and say first how I became a part of Canyon worship. You're basically only a part of the album that you're on each year. And so I was on Canyon Worship 2025, and I didn't even know that I was submitting a song for Canyon Worship when I did, because there are spring and fall showcases every year. And basically there's this QR code in the worship arts studio, and they send out an email or whatever, and they encourage you to submit 2 songs, 2 originals, to the Songwriter Showcase. And it's just an opportunity to write a worship or creative Christian song. And then they'll pick, I think it's 10 to 12, I can't remember the exact number. They'll pick around 10 songs from that pool that all of the students submitted to perform in the showcase. And then once you're in the showcase from there, they kind of see how the audience reacts and kind of see how it sounds live. And then from there, they'll pick those songs to be on the album. And so at first, I just thought, oh, great, a little showcase opportunity. I'll submit some songs, like whatever. And so I was a freshman. It was like my first month at GCU, and they were encouraging us to submit. And so I just sat on my dorm floor, as one does, and I wrote Jesus is the Reason on my guitar. And I didn't know, but apparently there's like a demo day that you can go and record in the studio and submit, but I just submitted it from a voice memo on my phone. The sound quality was horrible.
I love voice memos though.
Yeah. So yeah, I just submitted that pretty last minute, probably like the day before it was due. And then when I got selected for the showcase, about a month after that, they sent out like who got selected to be on the Canyon Worship album. But I want to say it was either for the showcase or for Canyon Worship. I honestly just had no idea how the process worked. I had no idea what was going on. And my really good friend Tally in Worship Arts texted me and was like, congratulations. And I was like, thank you, but why?
But why? Yeah.
And she's like, you made it on the Canyon, or at first she said, you made it on the showcase. And I'm like, great.
Yeah, like, oh, fantastic.
I didn't even know really what that was. Like, I was honestly just so confused because there are so many different things going on and so many different submissions going on that I was like, I don't even know what I'm submitting. So it was all very interesting, and it was definitely just God's hand in it all because I didn't even know what I was doing at all. So just to get that opportunity my first year was really awesome, and I didn't even know that I was trying to.
Oh
so that was cool. Yeah.
That is so interesting. So since then, like, what have you been doing with Canyon Worship? Like, obviously your song is expected to be on the album, but what have you been doing, like, I guess, with it?
Yes. So then, okay, this was freshman year. They selected who was going to be on the album in December. Then in January or February, somewhere around there, you sign with Canyon Worship, and then they fly out a producer from Nashville who produces everyone's songs. And so you come in, you sign up for a time slot, you come in and you record your song with this producer. I think we all met him once, and he literally just had me sing through the song 3 times. And he was like, great. That's all I need. And I was like, okay, great. I leave, and then he just does what he wants with it. He has a vision, and then, he produces it. So I actually didn't, that was January. I didn't hear Jesus is the Reason produced. I didn't hear a demo of anything until the next October.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're really only in the writing process. You're in the performing process for the showcase.
Yeah.
But then the producer is really the person who chooses where they want the song to go.
Yeah.
As far as like how the whole album fits together, which actually makes sense. Like you want one producer to make it all flow and sound similar, so you don't have this like crazy chaotic album. But then the next October, they'll have Canyon Worship 2025 live for anyone to come to. So that was this past fall. And that was the first time I heard it. Yeah.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
So, dang. So whenever you heard the demo, it was when it was already like...
Yes, it was done.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
was there anything
produced.
you wanted to like fix or change, or were you just like completely content with how it was?
Honestly, because I wrote the song without the mentality of this is for Canyon Worship. I didn't have like a super strong attachment to the song.
Oh, okay.
And so like I'm so thankful that I get to be on the album and like it's so cool that I got to write a worship song for it. My original intention for the song was like a super chill acoustic.
Yeah.
Lizzie McAlpine, but worship feel, right?
Yeah.
You know? And then when I heard the produced track, it was like totally nothing that I had imagined.
Oh, but like
it was
in a good way, or like you were
different.
just shocked?
I was just surprised. Like it was good. He's a great producer. Like it didn't sound bad. It was just not anything that I had envisioned for the song. So that was a really interesting process. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So what can you say, like what can you tell us about Jesus is the Reason?
Yeah, let me just pull up the lyrics really quick. Okay, so basically, first of all, I wrote Jesus is the Reason at a point in my life where everything had completely changed. I mean, typical for your freshman year of college. I moved from Chicago and where I grew up, but my parents also moved out here because my dad took a pastoring job in Phoenix.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
so now when I was going home on breaks, it was here. Like, I wasn't able to go back home. And so that was hard. It was hard to leave my family and my friends. And it was my first month here. And so, yeah, I kind of just had to say goodbye to everything. And then basically, I wrote the song because the one constant in my life in the midst of all the change was Christ. So I just wrote down, my heart and just kind of reflected on, I really wanted to display the heart of worship and the reason why we worship, which is just simply for who Jesus is and what he's done. So anyways, some lyrics in Jesus is the Reason is it kind of just talks about praying and relying on God's word in the midst of waiting. And then the chorus is just about remembering the reason why we worship, hence the name. So I don't know, whether you're leading worship from a stage or you're worshiping in the audience, we all have the same heart behind it, which is just to glorify Jesus and him alone. Nothing else. And so, yeah, that's kind of what it was about and the context around writing it.
I really like that. I think I'm excited to listen and stuff. It's going to be so good.
Oh, well, thank you.
Do you have a favorite lyric in that song?
Okay, so there's a lot of little verses in it. And it starts off by saying talking about seeking God, and then it's just drawing near to his heart. And then kind of just not being able to even comprehend how he laid his life down for us. And so it's kind of just being in awe of his mercy. But then the last verse is just kind of forward looking to eternity, and it says someday I'll be at peace forever with you, a life made new. Show me how deep, how wide, how far is your love, your presence is enough. So that kind of captures the heart behind it. But
I think that's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
What do you think is the biggest thing you want people to take away after they get to listen to that song?
I hope that they're just able to feel God's peace and presence as they worship him. That's kind of simply put and
but I
generic,
think that people really need that, especially with the hustle and bustle, I guess you could say, of being in college and constantly moving, sitting still and just enjoying that and listening and worshiping, not even necessarily in private, but just having that peace.
For sure. Sometimes when we're just worshiping, if you go to church every week or you go to chapel every week, it can kind of just get repetitive, and sometimes you just need to take a step back and remember the reason and the heart behind why we're worshiping and reflect on why Christ died for us in the first place. And so it's just a chance to be able to think more deeply about his great love for us.
Absolutely. So with Canyon Worship, was it intimidating starting there, joining, or did you feel you kind of eased into it pretty naturally?
Yeah, I kind of eased into it just because of all the different steps. There's the submission, and then there's the showcase, and then there's the meeting, and then there's recording. And so it's not really a worship team who all comes together and meets. It's all of these individual things. And so probably the most intimidating parts of it are the actual live performances. That's probably the most pressure. But since Jesus is the Reason, I've been able to be in every showcase, which is so fun. And just great opportunities to worship and hear other people's songs that they write. It's been so cool. But the very first showcase I ever did, which now I've done 4, so a lot more experience. But the first one, it was I had just gotten to school. I was so nervous. I'm what is this showcase going to be like? And I was a little intimidated for sure. And so it was also at night, and I was toward the end of the set, and I have this like circulation problem with my hands. Like they're just always freezing ice cold. Yeah, they're like always purple, always cold. And it was like so cold outside, and I was supposed to finger pick on the guitar.
Oh no.
And that's just like such a bad combo.
No, it
so
really is.
Yeah, so I'm waiting outside to sing. There was probably like 7 songs before me, right? I'm just getting frozen. And I go up to play, and I totally messed up on the finger picking because like I could not move my hands.
Yeah.
I was so cold, and I literally like stopped, and I like said in the mic, "My bad," and then started over because I just didn't know
You're
what
like, I just
to
need
do.
to recover for a minute.
Yeah. Like I was like, I just need to start over. So I literally was just like, "Yeah, guys, my bad," into the mic, and then I started over, which is kind of funny, but it was also just like, all right, I should probably think through what I'm going to say if I mess up next time.
Yeah.
But that was definitely a fail. So even more so, I'm just shocked that I got out.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are probably the most intimidating times, is just the live performances. But now, like looking back, they're so chill, and it's just this small like coffee shop feel.
Right, yeah.
So it's totally fine now.
Yeah. But the first time is always so scary.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Performing in general like can be kind of nerve-wracking, and like especially in a setting you're not super comfortable with yet.
Exactly.
Like I totally get that.
Yeah.
Plus the cold thing is so real. I talk about that too. Like I've had some festivals that I performed at, and it's the same thing. Like I have to play the guitar, and I'm like, guys, my hands are cold.
Yes.
Like I need to like just sitting there like stretching your hands over and over, you're like trying to get yourself warm.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Now I need to come prepared with hand warmers.
That's
or
literally
something.
what I was gonna say. I was like, you need to get some hand warmers and just sit there and rub them together if you get put last again.
Yes. Yeah.
So since then, like, what do you think has been your favorite part about being involved with Canyon Worship?
That's a great question. All of the media day was really cool. Like just all of the behind the scenes stuff, where it's kind of similar to this. You have like an interview and photos, and the photos turned out so cute that they put like on the cover of Spotify or whatever. And so that was really fun. And then just being able to record in the studio is always fun. Yeah. Never an L to record in there. Of course. So, yeah. That was probably my favorite part.
Was the media day like the first time you kind of met everyone?
I had met a lot of the students in Canyon Worship because of the showcase, and because Worship Arts is so small that I feel like you just get to know everyone so fast. But I did meet a few of them for the first time on Media Day. And when we're finally all together taking photos, there was a moment where I was looking around and I'm like, okay, this is the group. Like, I didn't even fully process who was on it yet until we'd all recorded. So that's
Plus,
crazy.
like, seeing everyone, like, all together.
Yeah.
Like, definitely.
Yeah.
So what do you think, like, let's say someone, like an incoming freshman maybe, or even someone who's already here, like, wants to join Canyon Worship but is maybe a little nervous to get started or, like, put themselves out there. Like, what advice would you give them about Canyon Worship? Yeah.
So I know that normally it's kind of dependent on the showcases. So I would just encourage them, keep writing all the time. If you want to be a songwriter in general, you just got to keep writing all the time. And try to perform as much as you can. Yeah. Because those are two really important things. But then also submitting to those showcases is the biggest thing, because that's how they pick them. Right. And then I would just say, like, as far as the writing process, just making sure that it reflects Christ, and making sure that it's biblical and all of those things, because those are hugely considered when they're choosing songs. Right. Just making sure lyrics are theological and all of that. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. I know that this year for the anniversary, they picked how Canyon Worship is set up a little differently. So we did get a new worship arts director. He's great. And so I don't know what direction Canyon Worship is going to go from this point on. I'm excited to see what they do with it. So it will be interesting for the next incoming freshmen. But I like how they do it with the showcases. I kind of hope they keep it that way. But I know that this year, for the anniversary specifically, they picked a team of writers who all kind of collaboratively write, so
that's
that way it kind of
interesting.
flows more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it depends if they want to stick with the original structure of it or go somewhere new if they think it'll be better. It's kind of dependent on that. But as far as what I know and have experienced, those are probably the best ways if you're an incoming freshman wanting to
definitely.
get on. Yeah. The more worship arts events and things that you attend, the better, because that's when you'll meet Joseph and Eric and Moises and all of the people who, you know, are on the panel picking the songs and all of that.
Definitely. So now I want to spend some time and talk about, like, just, I feel like a lot of artists experience writer's block. It's like a really big aspect in being a writer. It's so frustrating. So I just really want to spend some time and talk about that. So how often do you experience writer's block?
Yeah. So I wish that I experienced writer's block in some consistent way that made sense, but it's so random. Yeah. You know, hence the writer's block. Yeah. But I feel like my writing process is so random too. I really just, I would say the best songs that I write are always because I'm inspired. Yeah. And you can't force inspiration. Yeah. So if I'm going to go sit down and write a song, it's because I'm like super excited about a chord progression or an idea for a hook. It's never just like, oh, I'm going to sit down and pull something out of thin air today and hope for the best, because I mean, I have done that too, but I would say that it's better when when I'm inspired. Yeah. So there definitely are seasons. Like I just went through a season this winter where I was experiencing major writer's block, and mostly because I wasn't staying consistent. So consistently writing is important, but it was also because I've kind of been writing in different genres, and sometimes if you have, I mean, most people write in a specific style or genre, and that's like, you can write in that style or genre and you know you can do it best. Sometimes if you're going through an era of writer's block, it's best to switch up your style, try to write something totally different to try and expand your writing ability, so that way when you come back to your OG style, it'll be so much better because of everything that you learned writing in other styles. And like all of the biggest artists and recording artists, they all do that. You'll usually hear like some random album that you're like, oh, this sounds nothing like their usual stuff. And it's like, because then when they go back to their usual stuff, it's like 10 times better. So I did learn that. That's a huge thing for me this year, is like this winter when I was just at a blank. I had to just switch up my style and then go back. And then it worked out. But so like in long periods of those writer's block, do you think it could be caused by like that lack of inspiration, or is it sometimes in more of an internal pressure to create like the perfect song? Oh, for sure. That is keeping it from flowing? Definitely. Yes. There are so many times where I put pressure on myself, like I need to write for this, I need to write for this, and then the songs come out way worse. And so it's definitely better when you're just writing out of enjoyment because you want to and because it's fun. Like, you're going to get a better product. It's the same thing for anything. So, yeah, for sure. When I'm trying to force out songs for a showcase, I'm like, oh, these suck. There's definitely something to that. Yeah. So then do you think that, like, some people respond really well to, like, pressure? Do you think that you respond decently to pressure when it comes to writing music? Or, like, if there's pressure to write something, it's just you like experience that complete block, or does it kind of push you to make something good? I've experienced both extremes. Again, I wish I was consistent. But this, was it November or December? There was like this song submission thing that I had found out about like a couple days before the submission, and it was like, you have to have it fully produced and written and to send it in. And I like the challenge, and so I was like, might as well give it a try. So I got together with my producer super last minute, and I wrote this song like a few days before, and it turned out like one of the best worship projects that I've done. I was like, yes, like this is so great. And so that was like super last minute. But I've also experienced the other extreme where I'm also a part of the writers team for Grand Collective at GCU. And so we had this deadline to write for that where they needed the songs done, and I was like, this is horrible. This is making it worse. Everything that I was writing was worse. So I feel like I've definitely experienced both.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was the longest period of writer's block you think that you have experienced?
That's a great question. I honestly have no idea. I've been writing since I was little. Like, I've kind of just been writing my whole life. But I've gone months without writing songs, and I kind of go in phases, and I wish that I wrote more than I do. Because, yeah, that's how you get better. But it's pretty consistently, like, a couple months I'll just not really have anything, and then a couple months I'll have like a ton, and then maybe a couple more months. It's super inconsistent.
Which I mean makes sense. I feel like that is a big problem with writer's block, is like it'll just hit the most random points at sometimes. But like, have you noticed whenever you are experiencing not like kind of almost the opposite of writer's block, you're having a big creative flow? Are there like common themes in your life where you feel like helps that, I guess, spur on that creative flow that you feel like are lacking whenever you're having experiences of like long periods of writer's block?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest things for me are usually when I write, I'll write the melody first. Like some people write the lyrics first, and it kind of just depends. But I'll usually sit down and come up with like an exciting chord progression because I like different chords, and I don't know. So usually if I'm like going through a really great piano phase or like a really great guitar phase, that's when I'm able to like write a ton of songs because I'm excited about the melodies and like the chords that I'm creating and stuff. And although I do write a lot of worship, that has mostly, I mean, that's just like an awesome way to worship God and like such a cool outlet of just like writing to him. And that's been so cool to do through GCU. When it comes to like personal writing, I've had a rough past relationship, and so like a lot of my songs are kind of Olivia Rodrigo-ish, you know, and so like that specific theme, you know, when that was fresh, I was getting a ton out there, you know. So that was like a specific event that happened, or maybe when it's specifically worship, like I'll hear a really great message, or like there's phases in my life where I'll like really experience God's mercy or his grace, and so I'll just be super inspired to write about that. So it kind of depends on like what's going on in my life. And also when I have writer's block, I feel like it makes it worse to acknowledge that you have it, because, and maybe that's just me like being crazy, but I swear I like have to lie to myself, because I'm like, if
no, this is not happening.
If I say like, oh yeah, I have writer's block, then I'm just gonna give up, and then I'm just gonna accept the writer's block and not come up with anything else creative. But if I just say, I'm just a little bored, nothing's really going on in life, and that's why, then at least I can like try to come up with things. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. That makes complete sense. And it kind of like makes me think like, when you're experiencing like maybe writer's block, do you think it's better to like, I guess like kind of similar to what you said, like force yourself to write through it even though you're not really necessarily getting anything you're liking? Or like, do you think it's better to like take a moment, maybe a couple of days, and come back to it later?
Both. It depends the projects you're working on. I don't know, I've heard people, all of the like big successful artists, they always say like write every single day, write every single day. I don't write every single day. I wish I did. But I feel like if I did, there are so many songs that would just be so dumb, you know? I'm like, I feel like I'm wasting my time. But I'm probably not. No writing is wasting your time.
True,
so, yeah, but I think it depends on the song. There's sometimes where if I'm on a specific song and I'm writing it and like 2 hours goes by, like that's way too long for me. I usually write a song in like 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay, yeah.
And then I just got to move on. If I'm like sitting there for hours, then I know I got to move on. I got to come back to it or just scrap it all together.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting. Do you feel like it comes from like almost being like bored of it, or you just think like it shouldn't because you said normally it doesn't take you that long, like if it is taking you that long you just don't have that, I guess, connection to it?
It's just like beating a dead horse for me. It's like it's dead. It's already I think it's just the way my brain works. Like if I'm really excited about an idea and something's gonna be like good, then I'm just gonna it kind of just flows out of me. Right. It's just like I gotta write it down. I have to be creative right now. Like I have to get this down in my notes or whatever. But if it's like an extensive amount of time and I'm not liking where it's going, like maybe I really do like the melody and I'll come back a couple days later for the lyrics because I'm just tired or whatever it is. But I think it depends on the project.
Yeah. So then do you think there's been like a decent amount of songs that like I guess have been almost like stopped maybe by like that creative block that you have just never came back to, or do you usually come back to it kind of a little bit?
Usually I'll record it on a voice memo and I'll come back to it in like a day and I'll listen back, and if I'm like, oh wait, this could be a banger, I'll go work on it again. But if most of the time, for some reason, I just write my songs in one sitting. So most of the time, if I'm absolutely blocked creatively, I can't do anything else, I'll like listen to it back and not really like it and just not do anything with it. Has
there ever been a time, like I feel like I did this a lot, where like I'm like bored and I'm like scrolling through my voice memos and I'll find one that I wrote like years and years and years ago and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that I didn't even finish it. Maybe like it was just a melody. And I'm like, I need to like finish this. Has that happened to you?
Yes, for sure.
Yes, that's always
definitely. It's so
interesting.
Funny.
I'm like, wait, like my 13-year-old self kind of had something going here. Like
I actually just did that recently with a song from high school. That's so funny you say that.
That's so funny. I feel like it's always so funny because oh my gosh, looking back in like the voice memos, like it's crazy hearing like I guess the development of your voice and hearing the baby voice and you're like,
my gosh,
like that's what I sounded like, and people were telling me it was good. Like
I relate to that so much. Yes, so I literally sounded like a munchkin.
No,
like,
literally,
I don't know what
like
I
the baby
doing.
voice is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
totally.
My voice has gone through so many like phases. Like when I was really, really little, it was so deep, really deep and super raspy. I sounded like an actual old woman.
Really?
Like, it was crazy.
That's so
And then
funny.
it was like puberty had the opposite effect. Like my voice got higher, and so like when I'm listening to things, I'm like, dang, like what even happened?
That's
like I don't know how this happened, but the development is like weird.
Wow.
And then now it's deeper, like a little bit deeper than it was, obviously, like when I was in 6th grade or whatever. But like it's crazy just listening to the development and stuff like that.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, but that's why I love like going back and like maybe working on something. I'm like, the melody was my 13-year-old self, but the lyrics and everything else are now. So it's just interesting for sure.
That's so fun. Yeah, listening to old voice memos can definitely either be super encouraging or discouraging because you're like, wait, why was I popping off at 16? Why can't I think of anything better now?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I understand that completely.
Yeah.
So a lot of my best songs, I feel like that have the most streams are ones that I wrote when I was like 13, 14.
Yes.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Or like, why was that so good? Like
why
I'm
was
like
that
trying
my
to
prime?
think about like what was happening at like 13 that made me write this crazy angsty song.
It's so
and I'm like, what is going on? But anyway, like it's
so
funny.
real.
It's funny.
So real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're kind of going back to obviously the writer's block, I got a little distracted, but like do you think like having other outlets of creativity, like maybe art or like maybe it's honestly just reading, like do you think that helps with your writer's block if you take a moment, step away from writing and like I'm gonna go paint or like I'm gonna go draw or even just color or read, like do you think that helps your writer's block if you go back to it?
Probably yes, without realizing it. I've danced my whole life since I was 3, and so like everything that I do is like I have to go create, like I have to go choreograph, and so I'm a dance teacher now, or like I have to go write a song, or I have to go edit this project or video or whatever. Like everything that I'm doing is like I just need to create. I don't know why.
No, I so get that. Yeah.
So I've never like put 2 and 2 together. Like dancing probably does help my writer's block. If I do have it. That actually makes sense for times in my life that I've had writer's block and not been dancing. So that's a really good point. I should
Yeah,
think
you're
about
like,
that.
you know what? Actually, that's funny that
You know what? I'm
mentioned
going to go dance.
Yeah, no, the dancing thing. Do you write? Because my little sister's a dancer, and like I'll write stuff for their recitals, or like I'm just doing one right. I just did one for right now. But do you ever write like with the intention of like I'm gonna dance to this song?
No, never.
You should, because I feel like that'd be so cool, like dancing to your own song. Like, because I don't dance, but I like watching my sister do it.
Well, I love dancing to other people's songs, but I feel like I would cringe at myself.
Okay, that's actually a valid
if
point.
I played my own song, like I just can't.
Yeah, if you're like, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, maybe someday down the line.
What if you wrote it and like someone else sang it? Do you think you would be able to dance to it?
I don't know. I don't know.
I've never thought about it before, but now I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah. It's also interesting because I dance still, but not like I was growing up. Like I was in a studio.
Like you're more of a choreographer now?
Yeah, I'm just more of like a teacher. And right now I'm teaching middle schoolers, and it's so different than being in dance. Yeah. Because obviously they're so much younger, so everything's at a younger level. So like obviously I'm choreographing to like I Want You Back by Michael Jackson right now.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So yeah, so I never really thought about like, I've honestly haven't created or choreographed for myself in so long. Yeah. So I don't even know. That'd be crazy.
Interesting.
Well, good point.
You should do it.
Okay.
Just to let me know.
Okay, I will.
Now I'm curious. My brain is like turning because I haven't thought about it before.
Yeah,
but
that'd be so interesting. I'll have to let you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I really just want to kind of, I guess, get some advice. Like, has anyone ever given you advice that's really, really helped your writer's block, or maybe changed your perspective on it?
This is so funny. You know Ed Sheeran?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, are you about to say, okay, what, say it.
Wait, no, you
Wait,
say it.
Is this going to be the tap water thing?
No.
Okay, you go first and I'll you go first.
Okay. Hey, he's just a wise guy with a lot of wise things to say, apparently. I want to hear that, but my dad actually told me this. This is so funny. I think we were like, he was watching an interview with Ed Sheeran, and for some reason this just stuck with me. And maybe it's because I'm kind of competitive, but Ed Sheeran said in one of his videos that, like, whatever he was doing in college or high school or whatever to write, like, he was surrounded by so many great writers. And so he was like, whatever I do, like, whatever everybody around me is doing, I'm just going to work 10 times harder. And so basically, like, if they're in the practice room for 4 hours a night, I'm gonna be in there for 8 hours a night. It was kind of his mentality of like, I can work twice as hard. Yeah. So I am currently not doing that, but I do think about it a lot. It is inspiring because I think that it's not great to compare yourself. Like, everyone's at their own journey in writing, and comparing yourself can actually do the opposite effect in anything. Right. But there is something to be said about pushing yourself and working harder. And I feel like there's a way to say, like, well, I'm just going to work harder rather than I'm going to be better, right? Because there's always going to be people who are better than you. But that just kind of stuck with me of, like, all right, I'm going to go in the cam for hours a night if, I don't know. Yeah. It's just interesting.
No, that's, like, is really good advice. Yeah. Definitely. Because like, hard work is really important. Because you can have all the creativity in the world, but if you're not willing to put in the work, like, it's just not gonna go anywhere.
Totally. And like, the people who are better than you that you see, like, how do you think they got better?
Yeah, absolutely.
Putting in the work.
Yeah. No, mine was, he said something, it was also an interview, I think he was like doing like he was speaking to a bunch of people, and he was just talking about, like, they asked him, like, what do you do if none of your music is good, or like you're experiencing writer's block or something like that. And he was like, I like to think of it as like a dirty faucet, like dirty water. And he's like, you just have to keep the faucet running, and it's going to be really crappy, like, in the beginning, but eventually you get clear water. And I was like, that's so true. Like, just write through the bad stuff and feel fine when you like. But that's so funny that you brought up Ed Sheeran, because I didn't write it down in my list, but I was like, maybe I'll bring it up. But Ed Sheeran, man.
He's an amazing writer.
He's written so much songs. But okay, so I just have a little bit of questions from the listeners as we kind of transition out of that portion. Yeah. This first question from a listener is, what is the process like to get your song released? On Can You Worship. We actually kind of answered that a little bit. But is there anything different that you didn't say?
I mean, not that I can think of, because they're going a different direction this year. I'm not sure what it will look like in years ahead. I also won't be here, which is so sad.
Right, yeah.
But as far as what I've experienced, those are kind of the tips.
Yeah.
The more you're involved in, the better.
Okay, perfect. Next one, what inspired you to write Jesus is the Reason?
Yeah, just kind of being on my dorm room floor. I just really wanted to write about the heart of worship and why we do it in the first place, as there's so many distractions around us.
Right.
Just focusing on Christ. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you have any secrets to avoiding writer's block? Not necessarily getting out of it, but just avoiding it from happening.
Being consistent, which is hard. And I'm such a busy person, especially in this stage of life, and I just say yes to everything, which is bad. And there's so many times where I just get spread thin because I'm doing so many different creative projects apart from music, where I'm not able to give music attention, and then that's when I go into writer's block.
Right.
So I'm just excited to get through this semester when everything chills out.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for the summer when I can just be consistent.
Yep.
And that's with anything, you know. We say that all the time and then we're not, but that's the truth.
Hard to convince your brain to do something.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So this is the last question from the listeners. Was there a specific moment in your life that inspired you to start songwriting, or was it something you've just always done?
It was really just something I've always done since I was little. Like, I always had notebooks of songs. I don't really know what inspired it in the first place, because I've just been doing it for as long as I can remember. But there was kind of a turning point where I started taking it more seriously, of like, okay, this is something I want to continue to do, and like get involved with things like canyon worship in college, and actually like drop music on platforms, and something I actually wanted to pursue, because in high school my grandpa passed away. And so I wrote him this song called So Long For Now. And at that time I was just posting originals on YouTube and covers and stuff like that. And I did not have a lot of subscribers. Like, I don't know, it was my friends and family, so probably under 100. But I would just post for fun. And so I posted this song on the piano, and it was like sad but also hopeful, because I know that I'm going to see my grandpa again one day. And for some reason that song just really hit an algorithm, and people really resonated with it and related to it. And so it got like a ton of views compared to to my normal views, and I actually like gained 1,000 subscribers through that song. And I'm still getting comments like every day on this song of people like telling me that their grandparents are on their deathbed and they're like next to them. And like I got one comment that was like their grandparents on their deathbed and they're playing them my song. And so that was just so impactful, and hearing the song even more so now. I'm like, this went viral because of the message behind it. Absolutely. Not because of my ability at 15 to write, you know, or sing or whatever by any means. But it just made me realize that I loved being able to create a song that people can relate to and resonate with, and how much like power there is in music. And so I just feel like it's something that God has called me to do, to further glorify his name and share the gospel with others and give them something to just put their hope in, because it's just crazy what music can do. And so that was kind of like a turning point where that definitely sparked more inspiration, like, okay, I want to do this like seriously now. So
making like, I guess, connecting with people you don't know over something you wrote is like can be so powerful. And like we're all kind of, it's crazy to think like there's so much distance between us and like no one knows each other, but like loss is something that like everyone's gonna go through at one point in their life, and it's so hard. So like listening to someone else who does have, I guess, the range to create is like so beautiful, because helping someone through that can be so powerful.
Oh yeah, definitely. Losses, breakups. Those are all the ones where, everyone goes through them, and they're just searching for community. They're just searching for people to relate to.
Absolutely.
So music is like such a cool way to reach them.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
So now I have just like some fun rapid fire questions. I like to do it every episode.
Of course.
We'll just go through really quick the first that pops into your head.
Okay.
So first question.
All right.
Where do you think is the best location to draw inspiration? Like, is it outdoors, indoors, wherever?
Does it have to be a physical place?
No.
Okay. I think just life experience.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even know. But if I were to choose a physical place, probably outside. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I'm always writing like by a window or something.
Yeah, looking out to the beautiful view.
Yeah.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Do you write more in the morning, afternoon, or late at night?
Night.
Can you name one song that you wished you wrote?
That I wish I wrote? Ugh. Okay. What's the song called? Is it In the Beginning? It's like, when I'm back in Chicago.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, End of Beginning.
Yeah, End of Beginning.
Yes. That song is literally explains my life. When he dropped that, it was like the exact moment I was moving from Chicago.
Oh my gosh.
And it like just described, like, I was like, it's like
That's
I wrote,
crazy.
it's like he took the words out of my mouth and put it into lyrics.
Yeah. That song is fantastic. I think it was like literally my number one most streamed for the year
on
Apple
so
Music
good.
or something crazy. That
so
is a good song.
Yeah,
good one. Good one. Do you prefer to perform acoustic or with a large band?
Both. I like both. Performing with a band is so fun. I just did a gig in Iowa because my boyfriend also writes music, and his best friend is like a phenomenal drummer. He just moved to Nashville and is drumming full time now. But we visited Iowa because that's where my boyfriend is from. And so we did a gig down there, and it was literally just like I sang, my boyfriend sang and played the guitar, and then we had drums and a bass. So that was more of like a small band feel, but it definitely wasn't acoustic.
Each of the key instruments, Yeah,
and it was like so fun.
Yeah.
It was so fun. I loved that. So I like both, but there's just something about drums and bass. I just can't get enough of it.
Definitely. What do you think is the most important part of a song? Do you think it's the lyrics or the melody?
It's like the hook of both. Yeah.
You
gotta have.
It's definitely hard. You gotta have good lyrics, but sometimes the melody definitely carries it in a sense.
Yeah. I think like when it came to my songs in high school, like if they were good, it was because of the melody. I'm probably more melody driven, but when you listen to a song and it has that hook line that hits different, I don't know, you can't beat it.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
So last question of the rapid fire section. Do you have a guilty pleasure song?
Yes.
This
is so funny. I have a few, but consistently, there's something about Barbie Girl by Aqua specifically.
Love.
By Aqua
that
specifically.
Is so funny.
That just the beat, it's like a drug.
Yeah.
I just always used to blast it in my car. There was a year, I think it was 2023, it was my most listened to song.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I don't know why. But also, do you know what Pretty Girl Rock is? No one ever knows what Pretty Girl Rock is.
I don't know.
By Carrie.
I feel like I recognize it, but I could just be convincing myself I know it.
Yeah, that song is so funny, and it's just such a funny, girly banger. And so that's another one.
Okay,
but,
perfect.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to it, and I bet it'll be on my list of
Okay.
guilty pleasures for sure. Oh my gosh.
So funny.
Well, on that note, that actually brings
Oh
us to
no.
a close.
Oh no. I do not want to close with that.
That was the best thing to close on guilty pleasures.
Okay.
Let's own our guilty pleasures.
I'm owning it. Go listen to Barbie Girl right now.
They're fantastic for a reason. No, Barbie Girl is actually 10 out of 10. Let's get it real, okay?
But specifically that one.
Yes.
The new one's okay, but there's something
but
about the old
beat.
beat.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree completely. So that is the end of this episode of Voices of the Canyon. I just want to once again thank you so much for being here and coming and talking about canyon worship and writer's block. It was so insightful, so wonderful. And as always, I'm your host, Andrea Cunningham. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next week.